Frieha Altaf, also known as the Queen of PK. I love that. I've known Frieha for, I think, well over 35 years now. Frieha and I have done a lot of catwalk together, and we've done magazine shoots together. We've never been best friends or close friends, but I think there's always been, from my side at least, there's always been a lot of admiration for Frieha. And what do I admire and love about Frieha, apart from her amazing dimples and fantastic hair, is the fact that I think I always felt Frieha was always a maverick, a trailblazer. Whatever you did, you always wanted to do something different. You always had a lot of innovation and creativity from what I remember. And I think more than anything else, Frieha, and this is something Fariha and I always talk about on the other side, is there are no shortcuts in life. Mehnat karni padti hai, and you have to work really, really hard. And I've seen you over the years, over the last so many years, really working hard to build your business. So it's my absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us, Frieha.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, and thank you for having me.
Okay, Frieha. So let's jump right into our first question. So I really want to understand, when we talk about catwalk events and production, when did this concept actually when did you actually think about this? Ki yaar, ye karna hai. I really want to set this up. And then what did you have to do from then, from the concept to the actual realization and the launch of catwalk events and production? So what was that journey like? Take us through that.
So, Talat, actually, I never set out to become an event manager or, the X amount of things that I do. I just started out, doing different things. I wanted to be an artist, and I actually wanted to teach and become a professor. And just, I saw my professors in art doing that. So my training and my education was predominantly in art and not architecture, but art history, and a lot of sociology also. So there was another side of me that was always pulling towards, because there were so many social wrongs growing up, that I felt with my American education, it had sort of brought those things to light. But sort of got pushed into, when I came back, I was doing X amount of things, which a lot of creative people do. I always loved theater, so I was doing a lot of theater in school and college. And then I've sort of pursued that in Pakistan. So did some plays on PTV, did some, theater, then had art exhibitions. And then someone asked me to do some modeling, and I started doing modeling. So from somewhere in '86, when I was a model, I noticed that I would end up in a lot of shows doing more than just modeling, because there was no structure, there was nothing to it. I would end up doing, doing the music and doing the choreography. And so I was doing that from somewhere like in 1986 onwards. In 1989, I had a personal problem. And I had I was also in advertising. I'd been working in advertising for 3 years. And so that was my 9-to-5 job. And I sort of needed money, and I had only 5,000 rupee ki naukri. And I needed to get back to my husband in America. And the only way I could do it was get Canadian citizenship and just go in, because I told some lies, and I had to go through all of that. And then I was in a very, very down place. So one of my friends, Mahin Khan, who's a designer, suggested also, and some of my friends, Zahir Rahimullah and Sherzad, that why don't you do, you can raise the funds if you do a proper show. And Mahin had always said, I want to do a proper event, because I don't like the way events are done. I don't like the invites. I don't like any of it. So I set out to do that in '89, somewhere in October. I started as a one-man show, and I went and got 20 sponsors, got the invitation design at my advertising agency. I was very lucky. I was working there, printing, but everything I was doing on my own, driving to site, doing all those things. So basically, from that first event where I was a partner with Mahin, I did the event, and from 5,000 rupees, I suddenly made 150,000 rupees, something like that, 200,000 rupees. And I was like, okay, this is business and this is creativity and it's all possible. And that event was so successful that people started coming to me and asking me to do more and more events. I never got to the US. I never got the Canadian citizenship, but what it did was it started doing events. But at that time, Pakistan was in a very, I wanted to also pursue my art. So I was still doing my sculpture and painting. And so whenever I would get a good project or work with a good designer, that's the only time that I actually went out and did events. So there weren't that many sort of events happening anyways. What happened was, because I was working with multinationals, they started asking me to do other things. Fashion also was sugar coated. I mean, we couldn't say fashion show, so we had to call it a cultural show. So a lot of the shows were mixed with tableaus and theater and things like that, and that's where the journey sort of started. And so I started doing cultural shows. Then I was asked by Unilever Pakistan to do a press, like a sales conference for 3 days and given 9 days. And so started moving into more of the corporate launches and things like that. And then I would come up with ideas and concepts and think, oh my God, I was modeling for this show Network East for BBC. And I said, why don't we in Pakistan have a show like this, a magazine show that goes on television? Fashion at that time, because I started with fashion, that's why the company name became Catwalk. Fashion at that time was only for elite. It wasn't for the masses. You didn't have shows that went out to the masses. Masses did not even know what fashion was or models were. Model girl, models go. So we sort of started. I went in, say, 1993. I went up and I presented a show. So that's where the production came in. And we took Pakistan, the fashion show, the designers were coming up. So literally from Sana Safinaz to Amir Adan, everyone's first shows I ended up doing. People did not know where else to go. So they would come to me and I would come up with concepts and ideas. I would pitch it to sponsors and then get this stuff done. So product launches, things like that started happening simultaneously. And a lot of people had not understood Pakistan and event venues. And so I picked up venues which are very unusual. So we have this beautiful venue called the Hindu Gymkhana, which was lying, in dire straits. We didn't even have art directors. We didn't have art directors and set designers and people like that. They were only for PTV and they were not the quality of people. So I started doing things a little differently. I started asking architects to design my sets. I asked people who I knew who were into music to do the music. I started adding all those touches in, got to know really good script writers, and also started styling. So modeling for me was a very short period of 3 years, because eventually I loved the traveling and everything, but I got bored of it. And I thought, better to be behind the scenes and organize things and make more money. And, rather than doing something like this. I mean, my car was never air conditioned, for example, but that 150,000 rupees that I got, I bought myself an air conditioned secondhand car. So that's how the journey kind of started, and then moved into different aspects of, because there was no PR in the country. The celebrities were not getting any PR. I used to do a lot of music videos and where I would do talent hunting. A lot of models started approaching me, girls, because we had this thing in the program. The program became the #1 program on national television. So that's how we sort of moved into, so I moved into different dimensions, started discovering celebrity management, talent management. I started CATS, a modeling agency, and I made proper contracts for talent, because hota ye tha ki if you had done a commercial, it would run for 5 years. Your face had changed and the client was abusing that contract, or the models were not professional. They wouldn't come on time and they would not do things properly. All kinds of stuff with doing stuff. And then I took a little time off. The company was still running. I had my staff running the company, and I moved to Canada. And what I did was I went back to school. I had 2 kids. I went back to school and I did a diploma in fashion design, something that I didn't want to do, but it was kind of like my husband's thing, ki yaar ye karo, or tum maine kabhi. So I learned how to sew. I learned about fashion on an international level. And, then I kind of moved back. I moved back and the year 2000. So I'd already been working for so many years, and when I moved back, I realized nothing had changed in Pakistan in the 5-year time that I was away. Even though I'd come back every year, at least 2-3 times a year, just to do the work, I realized that nothing had changed. And I had come with so much information.